Hello, everyone, and welcome to our session today, How Smart Nonprofits Turn One-Night Fundraising Events into Year-Round Momentum. Thank you for being here. We're going to get started very shortly. On the bottom of your screen, there is a chat box. If you could go ahead and drop a hello, let us know your organization and where you're joining from. We'd love to see who we have on today and get to know you all a little bit better. All right. So we have a few more people joining right now. Um, Happy to see a lot of you here. We are going to be recording today's session, so you will get a copy of the actual recorded version of the webinar, as well as a copy of the PowerPoint slides. So you can take this, share it with your team, go back, review it a little bit later if you'd like. So you will receive all materials, but feel free to take your own notes. We are going to go ahead and get started because we are at the top of the hour. And if you are just joining, please make sure you utilize the chat box at the bottom of your screen. And you can put all questions, comments, let us know where you're joining from in that chat box. You can also utilize the Q&A box. That's the best way to make sure we see your questions. We monitor the chat, but we save all Q&A for the end of the webinar so we can have a really nice discussion. So make sure you put your questions in the Q&A box, and it's on the bottom of your screen and it says Q&A. So let's go ahead and get started. How smart nonprofits turn one-night fundraising events into year-round momentum. Introducing our panel here today, we have Didi Kisau, who is an award-winning strategist, advisor, author, and auctioneer, board and donor enrollment expert, and creator of the six-figure fundraising formula. How are you today, Didi?
I'm delighted to be here. Thanks.
Thanks, Didi. We have Chris Fink, who is our Chief Operating Officer of Arriva. How are you today, Chris?
I'm good, Gabby. Thanks for getting this together for all of us. Thank you so much to Dee Dee for joining and sharing her time with us and her expertise, and Jay as well.
Thanks, Chris. And last but certainly not least, we have Jay Fisk, who is the Chief Auctioneer and Co-President of Arriva's Microsoft Auction Software Division. Thanks for being here today, Jay.
Absolutely. Looking forward to another great webinar and being able to do one with my good friend Didi.
Awesome. And I'm Gabriella Salemi. I'm the Director of Marketing here at Arriva, and I will be your moderator for today. All right, so to kick things off, we're going to ask a few questions so we can better gauge who we have on the session today. We'd like to know, how many fundraising events do you run a year? So you have the option to choose 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or more, or maybe you do not run any events and you want to you're here to learn about best practices for events. Maybe you're thinking of running some in the future. Give a few more minutes for some answers to come in here. All right, so looking at the results, the majority of you, 41%, are running 2 events a year, 24% are running 1, 21% are running 5 or more, 10% are running 3, and 3% are running 4 events. Very interesting to see. Next, we would like to know what is the average number of attendees at your event? So you have a few options. You could choose under 100, 100 to 300, 300 to 500, 500 to 700, 700 to 900, over 900. Give a few more seconds. This one is interesting too. The majority of you, 77%, your events range in 100 to 300 attendees. Few of you in 300 to 500, few of you under 100, and then a few people in the 500 to 700 range. And then next, we would like to know, do you host a live or silent auction at your event? So you have the option to choose that you host both a live and silent auction, or if you just host a live auction, if you host just a silent auction, or if you host neither a live or a silent auction. All right, looking at the results here. So 41% of you say you host both a live and silent auction. 22% of you say you do not host a live or silent auction. 31% say you host a silent auction. 6% say you host a live auction only. We'd like to know, once your event finishes, do you have to move your event data into a donor relationship management database, and is this time consuming? So some of you may have an integration where your event data is automatically moved into your donor management database. Some of you may have to manually export that data from an event management platform and then upload it into wherever your donor information is centralized. So we want to know if that's something that is very time consuming for you, that maybe we could help make a little bit easier. All right. So 48% of you said yes. Oh, I see someone in the comments says ages. We can relate to that. So 48% says yes, this is something and it is time consuming. 23% say yes, but it's not time consuming, and 29% are not sure. And then last thing we would like to know before I pass it over to our panel, are you pleased with your current donor acquisition, retention, and engagement following events? And if you are struggling with that, you're on the right webinar, because that's what we're going to cover here a lot today. All right, so looking at the results, 51% of you say somewhat, so it could be improved. 29% say no, that you're not pleased. 20% say yes, you are pleased. Well, that is great for us to know. I will go ahead and pass it over to our panel.
Right.
I'd like to start by talking about my personal master plan for your year-round momentum. And it starts before, it happens during, and after. And if there's some of this that you don't do, here's what happens. If you have your master plan, if you're really working on getting the best people, and the before are your strategic partners and sponsors, and using your very best donors to reach out and help you get the best people for during. So if you do before and during, but not after, you have a squandered opportunity to follow up. And you'll see a few case studies on how I can show you how you can absolutely maximize this. I blew up 3 nonprofits from ground to greatness just using the gala and doing the before, during, and after with this master plan. If you are working your plan during and after, but squandering the before, you have missed qualified leads. And this is so important because this whole Venn diagram is about how you can absolutely explode your nonprofit profitability, your board, your recruiting for everything. How about before and after? But not during. That's a one-time wonder. You had transactional gifts. You just raised money and you were looking forward to next year where you can do the event all over again. But if you can do all three, you're going to have long-term philanthropy in every level, between sponsorship, strategic partners, table leads, your major donors, lapsed donors. So this is how we're going to show you how you can take the momentum in this webinar and maximize your fundraising year-round with just one event.
And I'll make a quick comment before we move on to the next one as well. If your focus is on a giant gala every year to be your big hit, your big budget, that's okay. But that entire planning time is also time that you can be nurturing for things that you can raise money with your constituents that are not planning on attending your gala. Because your gala, we saw the average was 100 to 300 people. You saw that, and that's a bell curve, and that's exactly what I think Dee Dee and I would have expected. So that means you're going to have 300 people. That's 150 buying units. We're going to talk about buying in just a second. That's 150 buying units out of your entire universe of people that can be supporting you that are going to get the benefit of all the work you're doing to put together that gala. So what Dee Dee said is 100% on. What about all the other people, the thousands, perhaps tens of thousands of people that you can tap into that are not going to be attending that gala? I mentioned buying units, and this is an area that is often misunderstood when you're planning a gala. You think, well, I'm going to have 300 people at my event, so I have 300 bidders. You do not have 300 bidders. I always like to jokingly say that husbands and wives do not bid against each other except on the family counseling. They tend to bid jointly. They're not making individual decisions on whether to take the trip to Bali or not. They're thinking about going together. So that's a joint decision. So when you have 300 people in a room and they're pretty much there paired up, you've got 150 buying units. And so if you want to size up the capacity of that room, you have to think of it in terms of buying units, not in terms of people. And so one buying unit has a capacity. And again, this is a bell curve. There's always outliers on the low end. There's outliers on the high end. But typically, for planning purposes, if you're going to have a room with 300 people, you've got 150 buying units. Your potential middle of the bell curve is $75,000 to $150,000. Now, does that mean that's all you can make out of that event? No. And Dee Dee will show you ways you can make money leading into the event and how you can make money leading out of the event. But at the event itself, what people will be able to write a check, give you a credit card for, or whatever, a good planning number in consideration of the outliers is $75,000 to $150,000. That's live, silent, paddle raise, raffles, any games, anything else you might be doing. That's a good starting point. So if you have really good auction software, and hopefully you do, if you're not, we can talk to you about that. But if you have really good auction software, you can go back and look at yield by buying unit. You can look at how much money did you make at the event, not ticket sales, not sponsorships, but at the event. And that'll let you know where you fall. And you're either going to fall low or you're going to fall higher, you're going to fall in the middle of that bell curve. But that helps you to plan the next event. What do we need to do? Do we need to have a bigger event with more people, more buying units, or do you need to have perhaps higher quality people at the event that can spend more money? So, and this is kind of a little different visual that kind of says the same thing, but perhaps in a different way. One of the common misconceptions of auction committees is that we need to fill the room with a bunch of billionaires. So let's go out and get as many rich people as we can to come to the event because they have all the money. And the problem with that is they're at the top of the pyramid, but they're not going to spend any money at the event. Now, they might be really good to tap into for matching gifts and things like that, but they're not going to be raising their paddle and bidding on a weekend getaway somewhere because they have a weekend getaway in their own vacation home. They're not going to, buy that weekend getaway. So you're not going to make a lot of money out of the top of the pyramid except on matching money and perhaps a paddle raise. The bottom of the pyramid, these are folks that are what we call eaters, not bidders. They're real happy that they got invited to the event because they're going to get a really nice meal and be able to drink some wine, but they're not going to spend any money. You're going to make money at the event between those two levels. People with a little bit of discretionary money, but people that don't have everything and actually have some appeal. When you put those tickets to the ball game up for bid, they're not the season ticket holders or the people that are happy you've got tickets to the ball game. They're going to bid on those sorts of things. So that's really where your action is. Your live and silent auction is in the middle of that pyramid. So be thinking about that.
Well, I know another thing on this pyramid, Jay, is as you know, I have my program called Monetize Your Minutes. And I'm sure you've done this too. And we're going to look at every single minute that we have our wonderful people in there and what are their 4 psychological profiles. And at what minute are we going to activate these so we can maximize the psychological profile to match the opportunity to give a joyful gift, whether it's raffles, games, silent auction, live auction, and so and also just the paddle raise. And so using your auction software to go in and do your post-event analysis, you're going to know just who should be back and who you can replace in those seats. And this is your long-term sustainability strategy.
And I'm going to say one more thing, and then we're going to move to the next slide. And that is, you mentioned minutes, and I think I want everyone to understand if they're planning a gala, every minute is a revenue minute. Every single minute is a revenue minute. That doesn't mean you need to be raising money every minute, but every minute is an opportunity to raise money. So if someone says, I want to do a 3-minute welcome, 3 minutes is about what it costs, time it takes to sell one live auction item. If the ad average auction item is $1,500 to $2,000 worth of value, that 3-minute welcome is worth $1,500 to $2,000. If that person talks for 6 minutes or 9 minutes, they may have cost you, up to $10,000 for that 10-minute speech. So you have to really, really control how you spend those minutes, because you have a finite amount of minutes to use, and you need to make sure that they're not being wasted. So here we go. We're talking about filling the room with bidders, not eaters. Okay, and that basically what that means is that people that are bidders will also eat your food. People that are there for the dinner will not necessarily bid. So it's important who you invite, not that just to fill the room with 300 people, but that you are diligent about inviting the people that you are going to feed food to, but also they're going to raise their paddle. They're going to be energetic. They're going to be supportive of that. And that's part of what Dee Dee's going to talk about is nurturing these people all year long. And you'll know who the right people are to invite, because they'll be the people that you'll be aware of their capability throughout the year, not just throwing an invitation out there and hoping somebody signs up. You want to be very selective about who you put in those 300 seats. And you want to sell that mission. The worst thing you could possibly do is throw a party and hope it raises money, or, to put it another way, to invite people to a gala and then inflict a fundraiser on them. They need to come with the intent of spending money. And part of that has to do with what you charge. I jokingly say, give them a lovely $85 chicken dinner and only charge them $125 for it, because that way that you're getting the people are opting in for the right reasons.
All right. Thanks, Jay. Thanks, Dee Dee. I'm going to just look at this through the lens a little bit more now after the event and pre-event too, but managing and through the technology perspective and data perspective, because I do see a lot of our clients and a lot of prospects I talk to as well who struggle with managing data pre and post event. And particularly, usually an organization is using a separate platform to manage the auction/event. And if it's not integrated with their donor management system, there's got to be some exchange of data going on. Usually getting lists from your donor management system out, bringing them into your auction management platform, and then once the auction's done, getting all those transactions, in-kind donations, sponsorships, ticket purchases, whatever, back into your donor management system as well. So you have that information in your database of record. But please, JDD, add your perspectives here too. But ultimately, utilizing a system that can integrate with your donor management system, if your event system can allow you to exchange data in a more seamless, easy way, pre-event and post-event, you're going to have much cleaner data. It's one of the biggest vectors I see for messy data in donor management systems, is that exchange of data, trying to import all those transactions, ticket purchases, et cetera. Post-event, you create a bunch of duplicate records, particularly when you have, let's say, an event system that cannot track households and multiple people in a household. It gets messy. Now, if you're using a solution like Ariva's and Maestrosoft's where they're integrated, it makes it a lot easier. But it is an issue to be aware of and to think about and to be thoughtful of, because you can create a big mess in your donor management system quite easily and quickly. There are a lot of solution event and auction management platforms out there that allow you to retain the donor management system ID number, bring it over so that when post-event, you can use the ID number to bring back those transactions just based on the ID number instead of having it to match off of a name and address or something like that, which can get a little messy. So that is something to think about too when you're doing that. We actually have that ability because we do have clients who are not necessarily using our auction platform with our donor management system. And that's something that we can do too. But ultimately, ideally, you're going to be able to mitigate those duplicate records when you're exchanging data pre and post event with an integration like ours. If not, there are ways to mitigate it, like I said, by sharing ID numbers. But you can also do, if your system has a duplicate checking utility built into it, hopefully it does on your donor management side, even after you've imported, let's say, all the sponsorships, purchases, ticket purchases, et cetera, after the event, you can hopefully run a duplicate checking utility that will also allow you to consolidate duplicates that do get introduced during that process. And this is just on the next slide. This is just an example of ours and the duplicate process there. It's nice in that you can easily, it will find your duplicates for you. It'll present them to you in one panel, all the duplicates for a particular record, and allows you to consolidate them into one. Hopefully you have something like that. Although ideally, hopefully you have an integrated solution that where you don't have to do this at all. But anyway, all right, if we go to the next slide, Gabby, expressing gratitude post-event, you know, this applies really across the board, not just with regards to your events and auctions events, but it really, gratitude is in expressing gratitude in a timely way and uh, in a personal way is an issue, and it affects, you know, retention. It 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 it's really an issue that we see across the board with all of our organizations. So really, you want to be timely and you want to be specific and personal about that expressing that gratitude, and you want to segment those groups out, right, into, you know, Dee Dee mentioned earlier, like you've got all these different groups, these segments within an auction event. And sometimes they're combined across the board, you know, in terms of sponsors and in-kind donors and ticket purchasers and et cetera. And you really want to make sure that you are recognizing what those contributions were, and in a proportionate way, right? Sending out a generic email thank you to your biggest sponsor is probably not a good idea, right? They're probably not going to sponsor you again next year. You should really be thoughtful about segmenting those groups out. Who are our sponsors? Thank them personally for their sponsorships, and who are the really large ones, and maybe personally thanking them, you know, giving a phone call, sending a personal email, personal note, et cetera. And also those large, the people that have bought large items, you know, or so and Jay mentioned too, you know, and Dee Dee, that the people that don't necessarily that attend, don't buy anything, those are also people that could be future donors to you. They're now engaged with your organization. They know what you do. There's a connection you have that you could utilize and follow up with them, right? But ultimately, I do see, and I have seen, we just talked to a client last week who lost a major donor because of timeliness in expressing their gratitude. So you really need to be thoughtful about it, and you can express it in different ways too, other than just direct reach outs through, you know, text and phone and direct email and social media, et cetera. There are graphics and content that you can put on your website to convey those messages that you can then send out via email and post on social media to show the impact that this event or these sponsorships, these donations had on your organization. So there's that personal connection between, you know, what they, you know, their attendance, their purchases, their sponsorships, et cetera, and what the impact it had in your organization.
Hey, Chris, quick
Yes,
question on that.
please go.
Comment on that. At the gala, you're going to have people that are individual bidders, but you also have people that are bidding because they were invited by somebody at a table. So
Mm,
your auction software can run
good point.
dollar reports for you, showing you who are your most generous people at the event on down. That's a good place to go to, you know, draw a line, figure out how far down you want to come. Do you want to come 5, 10, 15, 20 people, but draw a line. Everybody above them gets a personal thank you, perhaps from the executive director or from a, you know, board member, something like that. But also you can do a statistical analysis on dollars by table, and that will help you determine whether the
Mm,
person that hosted the table is someone that you want to lock in as your table host the following year. I've even
yeah.
suggested for some events that they do a top down by table yield, and to take the top 3 or 4 or 5 tables, go to the table host, the table captain, offer them a limousine for the following year if they'll
That's
host
great.
a table again, and that
Yeah.
way they'll invite their friends to ride the limousine to the gala. That does a number of things. Number one, it makes them honored, but also it makes sure that they don't disappear until the end of the event, because you know, that's when the limousine is going to pick them up. But that really is a way of honoring the highest contributors there, and assure that they once again the following year come back to support, because that's your core group, and you want to nurture them.
So I'd like to jump in because having been an executive director and a development director and a founder of 3 nonprofits, I know what this feels like because I've walked in your shoes. And to be able to create that donor relationship with everybody at the table, uh, imagine that that top table can come back. But what if you actually did the work? And I know because I've done this and found two people at that top table who gave multiple times throughout the year because they became connected to the cause. And
Mm,
now you got three tables out of that one table. But you
mm,
have to do the work. And I know because I've wasted hours trying to create find the donors and go through the duplicates. I've had the worst software. I've had no software. And what we really want you to get out of this is to know that there is a fast track for you to be able to use this event, maximize your return on investment and return on experience. So you're creating lifetime donors and not just looking forward to next year's gala. So you hope these people come back and give more money. We want you to expand and take a rocket ship to
mm.
growing your organization with this campaign.
Great points. I thank you. You're the event experts. I appreciate the real world examples and God, you just made me think of Dee Dee, how seating charts are so important too, right? At these events and how you can actually make sure that you're sitting maybe when your board members or a major donor next to a potential major donor. You're seating yourself next to some potential major donors, et cetera. And
Yeah.
then capturing too what you were saying earlier, Jay, like you don't always know who's coming, right? Sometimes a sponsor will buy a table of 10. So you only know the person who purchased the sponsorship, but collecting those attendees information too, right? And making sure you capture that so you can also potentially solicit them, engage with them later.
I know.
All right. And it was this good segue right into engaging event attendees with post-event surveys. So I do see a lot of organizations struggle a bit with ROI on some of their events. I think some of that's just establishing clear goals about what your goals are for the event itself. Is this for really awareness of your cause? Is it just really your single largest fundraiser and you're making most of your money for this event, et cetera? But ultimately, you want to you want to you want to engage with the attendees and make sure that you're continuously refining your strategy to improve the attendance experience and to get more money to get more attendees. And we do have some clients that are using our platform to send out those surveys post event and get their feedback, right? And sometimes that will bring up things that will highlight changes that you can then implement based on that feedback, and it allows them to feel more engaged too and be part of more engaged with your organization. And they're flattered that you ask. I don't think that you should combine donor surveys with asking for money. I've seen that. We call that and thank yous as well. We call that don't do any tasking. Don't thank and ask at the same time. But I do think that getting feedback on how your events have gone is always a good thing to do, and hopefully you can present those easily, send out an email with a link to a survey, and have those results come right back into your donor management system, right? All right, Dee
All
Dee.
right, I think it's my turn. So
Mm-hmm.
here is a perfect example. And so I went to a gala and I call it disaster to distinction. I was an attendee. And at the end of that horrible event, I went up to the CEO and I just said, "This is the worst event I've ever been to. I would love to help you do something better. You must have lost money." And he said, "Well, meet in my office on Monday." But after I got hired, I found out that they had spent $47,000 to raise just 32. And I knew it was a disaster because they had a comedian asking for the money and embarrassing people. So I knew that was not not all about it, right? So my master plan was to reimagine the annual gala as a donor enrollment event and to raise more money, create relationships, and build opportunities to bring back the lapsed donors, increase corporate and strategic partnerships. And that's exactly what I did. I got on the phone with lapsed donors, asked them why they hadn't come. Would they be my guest at the next gala? I reached out to big community partnerships, invited them to come volunteer. They bought tables and became involved. They are still involved 12 years later with this particular organization. And the challenge was the lapsed donors, there was little accountability on spending and long-term outcomes, and the storytelling was terrible. And I knew because I'm a journalism major and I can tell a story. So we created these partnerships with some local corporations. We did personal relationship building, and I'm just going to tell you, it wasn't we, it was me. I did it myself because I really had other people, and you might have heard about this, not completely collaborating with this person with the bright ideas. And so I did a lot of this myself. I went to auction school on my vacation at this particular organization because they didn't want to hire an auctioneer. So I said, if I could learn this well enough to be able to ask better than the comedian, maybe we would be able to get somewhere. And there was a fundraising strategy for every decision. There was no spend without a reason for investment or ROE, which would be a return on the experience for the donors. And the immediate outcome in less than a year, at the next gala, we raised $201,000. I have
Wow.
long-term corporate and donor partnerships. I'm still in touch with this organization, and that one lapsed donor that I brought in is now their major donor across the board. So a year later, I stayed and we raised 350,000. We increased volunteers and programs for the organization using I don't like to call it a gala, I call it a campaign. It's a
Mhm.
live campaign where you can educate everybody in the same sphere, elevate everybody to be part of the mission and feel the impact and the lift that their gifts can make. You're communicating with them to know this. And finally, you want lifetime enrollment by the right people. You're enrolling them in this. Think of it as a capital campaign for humans, not just a one-hit wonder. And so the secret sauce was a post-event relationship building that happens all year long, leveraging those partnerships with the friendships for sustainability and win-win outcomes. And what that means is that I wanted that my sponsors and my underwriters, I wanted us to be telling people about them all year long because I wanted them to joyfully come back. And I did it with a tequila company once. And the next year, my zip code was the number one selling zip code for that tequila. And you can bet they jump in still every year if we have a tequila tasting fundraiser. And so, folks, doing the work on both sides, not the taking, but the giving and the thanking and the elevating. And it makes for joyful work, very joyful work, and good outcomes.
I want to make a quick comment about the 47,000 versus 32,000. The Association of Fundraising Professionals, AFP, has a guideline, and Dee Dee may correct me on this, but I believe it's 17 or 18% to 21% net to gross. Basically means that if you are raising $100,000, your budget is in the 17 to $21,000 range. And again, I might be off a percent or two there, but certainly you're not spending 32,000 to raise 47,000. That's just way off the chart. So one of the things you might want to do is look at your own event that you just had, and how much did you raise at that event, and how much did you spend at that event. If you're down in the 20%-ish range, you're probably doing okay. If you're in the 40-50% range, you got a serious issue you got to take care of. People, and it's because your supporters have a right to know that most of the money that they're giving you is going to the cause, not going to the party. Think about your centerpieces. Are you spending $50 on centerpieces that get thrown away at the end of the night? Or are you spending
Mhm.
$30 on the centerpieces and selling them for $50?
Yeah.
That would be a better way of approaching it. I love it when people decorate with revenue and with revenue items. Try and figure out to decorate as much as you can. If it's live plants, you want to decorate with live plants and send people home with the live plants that they pay for. That's a nice decoration idea. The whole point is be mindful of your budget. Look at that right net to gross, and that's a good indicator.
Absolutely. And I would like to also add, I did this all myself as a development director, and we didn't waste staff time. We got the right strategic partners to come in and take over things and deliver value, and then also be able to sell some of this stuff on top. So we had multiple income on one thing. And now we'll take it away to the next topic.
No, I love it. I love the ROE. Haven't heard that one, Didi, like that.
Okay.
Um, And by the way, our CEO, David, is a huge tequila fan, so you should invite him to your next tasting.
He may have been
Um,
visiting DD's zip code at the time.
that's right. He might be the reason why you had that's such high. That's right. But to expand, Didi, a little bit on what you just mentioned about post-event engagement, right? And this is just stepping up and looking at it from a higher level in terms of, donor acquisition, retention, engagement, which through that poll we had at the beginning of this conversation that a lot of organizations are struggling with, right? I think just real quick, the biggest mistake that nonprofits make is just trying to speak everyone the same message. But the reality is your best donors or attendees, sponsors, they do share common traits, but you can speak to them specifically to connect with them, right? Which is what it's all about, and keep them engaged. But there are tools that you can use to better understand donor engagement and also what their potential is for giving more. You can use prospect research tools like donor search AI, which we integrate with, can expand your understanding of a donor's potential for giving, a capacity to give, and so you can pinpoint like what attendees, whether they bought something or not, or sponsored or whatever, or who are maybe more likely to give to you based on demographics, values, capacity. And that really shifts that fundraising from a guessing game to more strategic approach where you're focusing time and resources on prospects and donors who are most aligned with your mission and most capable of giving, right? And your donor database is really your most valuable asset when it comes to that, right? It tells you when you're winning or when you're losing donors, like you mentioned, lapsed donors, analyzing patterns in giving history, consecutive giving, your retention rates, what are the preferred channels of outreach for your donors? Are you keeping track of that? And are you engaging with them in the channels they prefer? Sometimes that's generational, sometimes it's personal preference. Um, for example, identifying which donors, lapse after year two, or which channel drives the highest first-time donations for yourself, et cetera. Tracking all that engagement, and especially making sure that event data is also combined with your donor data so that you can do that segmentation and engage with them based off of all that information is super important. I'll let Didi go.
Oh, right. Well, this was another grassroots to greatness case study. And like I mentioned before, I really believe that a campaign gala where you can bring everybody together to educate, elevate, and enroll them is the ultimate way to build your nonprofit organization. I've built several by starting with a gala and using those people throughout to be lifetime donors, referrals, strategic partners, etc. So here was a problem. Um, a new nonprofit had about $5,000 in the bank, and they needed to raise money and awareness to locate and enroll members at risk from PTSD and war trauma. These were veterans from Afghanistan. And so this gentleman came to me with an idea. We wrote it on a napkin at a bar, and he convinced me, like, oh yeah, man, I'm just going to take this on. I'm just going to do it. So the master plan, believe it or not, 5 months out, he was going to ride a bike across country. He was going to end at Arlington National Cemetery. They're going to meet key families along the way. Chris, I'm serious. This all happened. And it's ridiculous. But we would meet key families along the way, raise awareness, raise money along the ride, conclude with a gala to educate, elevate, and enroll long-term donors for sustainability in Washington, D.C., which is the opposite coast. I don't even live there. And I'd never been there before. And the challenge was he had no bike and no community, but he'd been training. He was going to ride a bike. The solution was so easy. It was a single phone call to Specialized Bikes. And they said, yes, they were all in. They built a custom bike. And guess what? We got a whole giant company behind us to follow us on the entire ride. And we could share their community of donors and riders. We showed up at Arlington National Cemetery. We had nation coverage between AARP, which did a beautiful video for us. CNN covered it, CBS. We activated amazing board members and we filled the room and were able to bring some of the veterans. When we walked into Arlington on that day to that final grave, there were lots of veterans from other organizations too that came and saw this awareness. And there were guys from this platoon who came to see one another. So do you see how now I had a story to tell? We
Mm,
had outcomes and people with joy in their heart and tears in their eyes. That was amazing, amazing. And the immediate outcome was we enrolled 47 veterans and raised $100,000 with a ride in the gala. And this was, my friends, 5 months. So a year later, we had numerous partner bike rides, even in Petaluma, California. We did wine country. We were the head of the parade for the Petaluma Veterans Day parade. And there were, I forget, 100,000 people at that parade. We got an award from a congressman. We got to ride in the Levi Leipenheimer bike ride, which is separate ride. I'm riding a bike 50 miles. So I became a bike rider and also, an influencer for Specialized through all of this. 47 veteran, or sorry, so a year later we had all those events and whitewater rafting and other amazing events were all paid for by people who found out about us, and I gave them an opportunity to underwrite an event for veterans. And it was easy, 6,000 here and 10,000 there. And so we enrolled them in programs, reunions, outdoor activities. We had paid employees, national recognition and partnerships, and money invested in high yield accounts and scholarships awarded. And that secret sauce, folks, was that post-event relationship building all year long to
mm.
leverage partnerships and friendships for sustainability. And they are still saving lives. There has not been one soldier suicide in
Wow.
this group of amazing veterans. They are together. It's not easy. And I'm just so proud of that. But what did we do? We had a gala, an event. We did the post-event support, and this is how I do with every client because I know this works. And I'm actually taking on a separate client now, trying to help them do their donor development. And I'll just say it's a little bit of a nightmare because the data is so convoluted, it's hard to find who the top donor is and who's been coming to galas. And so I personally called every attendee to their last gala because they actually hired me to be their auctioneer. And I called everyone myself because they didn't have the time. And what did it take me? About an hour and 50 minutes. And now I have a somewhat of a relationship with them. But do you see if you could just do the little bit of work of calling everybody, which it takes very little time. Most of them you'll leave a message on their phone. And this is what I did with this organization. It's what I'm doing with a new organization, and it's what you can do so easily and make it easy by getting the data right at your fingertips. That was a lot. Sorry.
That's
I, I,
learned.
maybe it's because I go ahead, Jay. I don't want to interrupt
I
you.
was just saying, learned a lot. It's okay.
Yeah, no, maybe it's because I flew in on the red eye last night. I didn't get a lot of sleep, but I almost got teary-eyed. That was just an awesome story, Dee Dee. Thank you for that. I love that story.
Can I just add
Petaluma,
one thing? You see
yeah.
this little horseshoe that was given to me by the old guard at Arlington Cemetery as gratitude for bringing another event to them. And so,
Wow.
uh, you know,
And by the way, we're getting a lot of great questions in the chat. I just want to let everybody know we are going to have a Q&A at the end.
Yeah.
And keep throwing them in there or in the questions because we are going to try and get through all of them at the end here. So
Yeah.
we had some really good questions coming in.
Yeah, I'll go quick here so we can get to the Q&A. And I'm a big biker. Specialized Bikes is local to me, so that's just a great story. Love that all around. Uh, I'm just going to mention really quick, just there we do have a platform for peer-to-peer giving. There's a lot of other platforms out there that do that. We also have a team fundraising platform that a lot of people use in conjunction with events. So it is something to consider. It does allow it allows people outside of your own staff, board members, and your staff could start peer-to-peer campaigns too, but anybody can, and basically raise money on behalf of your organization. And it's a great way to acquire new donors, particularly just because you're using and utilizing uh, e- these event attendees and other people's networks, personal networks, that they can disseminate these campaigns out through, social media, et cetera. So you're basically getting exposure now. So this viral way of putting out there, hey, I'm raising money on behalf of this organization. Please give to me. They're putting it on their Instagram, et cetera. So it's something to consider if you want to learn more about peer-to-peer giving and team fundraising in conjunction with your event, let us know. We can talk to you about it. But let's get to Q&A, Gabby. I know we got one more slide here though, right?
Yes.
Jay?
And then
Oh, so this is me. Okay. The what struck me, it's been rearranged. Yeah, this is a continuum, and we see a lot of committees will get real enthusiastic. They'll have a kickoff. They'll bring in their volunteers. They'll get out there. They'll do the procurement, the audience development. They'll have a fabulous gala, and at the day after, they'll go, "I'm glad that's over. I don't ever want to do this again." And then, of course, it takes about 3 or 4 or 5 months, for the memory to fade. And they say, well, I guess it wasn't that bad. Let's go ahead and let's do another gala. And so what happens is they're in perpetual startup mode. And as most business people will tell you, startup companies aren't really very profitable to 3 to 5 years. So if you're always starting over, you're going to always be a startup. And so what you've got to do is you've got to think of this not as something that starts and ends. It's something that's always happening. A good example of that be if your business was selling Halloween costumes, you're good. You don't go out of business on November 1st. If you sell Christmas decorations, you're not out of business on December 26th. What you're doing is you are then on the first day of the next step of your process. And you have to think of it as a circle, not as a line. It's not a timeline, it's a time circle. And different things happen at different times on that circle. But what's happening in between all of those times are things like nurturing the guests that came, nurturing those that opted out. For example, you might have a really good person who says, "Gosh, I really would like to come to that, but my college reunion happens to be that weekend, and I'm not going to be in town." Well, that doesn't mean you forget about them. That means you give them number one, you let them opt out for a price, basically on your invitation. Let them write, "I'm unable to attend. However, please take my donation of." But it also means that you continue to follow up with them so that the next year they're not having their college reunion. Excuse me. Stand by just a second. Sorry about that. I had a police car going by. I'm sure that was very irritating to hear that screaming.
Couldn't hear it.
But I don't know if you heard it or not, but it was very
Yeah.
bad on that. Anyway, that person may be a great supporter, but they're not going to have a college reunion every year. And this is why you've got to take the DD approach and you've got to maintain that relationship.
Mm.
The same thing goes with the auction. If that's your big gala, if that's your big push, great. Lock in your sponsorships, not for 1 year, but lock them in for 3 years or 5 years. I call them sustaining sponsors. Normally, committees are really good about putting the list of the committee or the board on their letterhead. Well, don't put committees and board on your letterhead. Put your sustaining donors on your letterhead so that every time you send out a letter regarding the gala, the sponsors are getting visibility. That's one of the reasons why they're committing to you for 3 to 5 years, because you're giving that the added visibility. Use the ability to give your sponsors visibility throughout the year, not just once a year and have it go away the day after. So this is what I mean by it's a time circle, not a timeline.
Well, and I'd like to add one thing very quickly, Jay, is I had to write this down. It was so brilliant. Um, if you always starting over, you'll always be running a startup. And this happens with so many organizations. You have a wonderful volunteer, you pick a new gala chair every year, and what they want to do is reinvent it from ways they've seen somebody else do it. And that doesn't respect the donor development person in your organization who knows those donors, what they like, and instead and with all grace and peace and all that, you come in and you just want to make a name for yourself. You want to have the best, the most fun gala ever, and you're going to do it completely differently. But really, we need to really start in the development department. It's not a startup party year after year. It's a continuation and a continuum of keeping those relationships and your donors connected to what you've achieved over the last year. And so that's really important. And I see this happen a lot, and it just hurts because I know we're missing the mark a little bit.
One more quick comment I want to make on that is don't be afraid of change. The old saying, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. You have to embrace change. However, change needs to be incremental, not wholesale. And I always remind my clients that change needs to be evolutionary, not revolutionary, because people get shot in revolutions. So if you want to make a change, small changes, and this is why the continuum helps you, because you can put a little bit of a change in one year, you can put another change in the following year. Over 5 years, you've changed for the good. You've gotten to where you want to be, but you didn't do it all at once and burn people out.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jay. Thanks, Dee Dee. All right. We're going to get to our Q&A after these next few slides here. I see the question coming up if you're going to be getting slides and a recording a few times. Yes, you are going to be getting all of that, so no need to worry there. So sit tight. We're going to begin our Q&A in just a few minutes.
Yeah, I just want to spend a few seconds to make sure everyone understands who Ariva is. We've been serving the nonprofit industry with donor management solutions for over 35 years. We've got over 6,000 clients nationwide, work with a lot of national organizations that you see here on the slide on the right. We've done over 30,000 live, virtual, hybrid event galas, fundraisers. Our software is built exclusively for the nonprofit industry. If you go to the next slide, Gabby. As Jay and I talk to a lot of these organizations that are interested in our software solutions, we find about the average is they're using 4 different point solutions to manage their events, their donors, their volunteers, et cetera. So we're consolidating all those databases into one typically. So if you are having those challenges, please reach out to us. As you can see, we have full donor management suite, digital fundraising. Jay is part of the auction division on Microsoft. He's an amazing auctioneer, so he provides those services as well as he provides amazing software to manage the auction. So if you have those needs, please let us know. And then the next graphic is really just a visual of kind of our entire ecosystem of what we offer. Again, if you need any information on what we do, please reach out, and I will give back to you, Gabby.
Thanks, Chris. Yes, there's a poll on your screen right now. If you would like to learn about any of Ariva's donor management, database management systems, or software, please go ahead and hit yes, and we will reach out for a tailored consultation. All right. And then, Dee Dee, did you want to share a little bit about your business and yourself?
Thank you so much. Well, I'm delighted to say that I've just been recently named Outstanding Fundraising Professional with Silicon Valley
Oh,
by
congrats.
Thanks. By the Silicon Valley Association of Fundraising Professionals. And that was such an honor to be awarded that by peers and, people who I've respected, but I've learned so much in my own industry and so much outside my industry. So I do coaching and mentoring. I do galas and auctions, board development training, and I'm happy to help any of you. I have a book coming out in January called How to Raise $1 Million Without Asking for a Dime. And that's got to have case studies of all the things that I've talked about and more. And so nothing makes me happier than to talk about how you can raise more money and create a cathedral for your mission and not just a little pathway, right? It's scalable and repeatable, and you're going to leave a legacy once you're gone. And we do that. I did it by standing on the shoulders of the greatest people ever. And now I invite you to stand on my shoulders so I can pour that knowledge into you and can build a cathedral together. And so thanks, Chris and Jay and Gabriella and everybody out there for the pleasure and opportunity to share with you.
We are thrilled to have you as a partner with Ariva. You are a tremendous asset for us and one of our many partners we have. But you just are outstanding, especially as a fellow auctioneer. So.
Yeah.
Well, let's get to some of those questions.
1 second, Jay. If you would like to learn more about Dee Dee or her consulting services or auctioneering services, please go ahead and hit yes, and we will make sure those names get over to her so she can get in touch with you. All right, now we can get into questions. Okay, so I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen, and then we can go ahead and get into our Q&A. So first question that we have, going back to the beginning of the presentation when we were talking about the top of the pyramid, wouldn't those top of the pyramid donors be best for the paddle raise?
Yeah, I'm sure Dee Dee will chime in too, but it's always good to start a paddle raise knowing you have one in the bank, so to speak. So if you have high net worth people coming to your event, They may not necessarily want to be visible during the event, raising the card at 10,000 or 25,000 or 50 or whatever level you're going to start at. But they might be willing to do it anonymously. So one of the tricks we can use as an auctioneer is we can say, ladies and gentlemen, tonight we're going to start our paddle raise at $25,000, and we're so pleased to have an anonymous gift of 25,000 to get us started. Was there someone else in the room who would like to match that 25,000? So that sort of primes the pump for it, if you will, if they want to be sort of anonymous. The other way you can do it is you can use them as matching gifts, so that when you start at 25 and you work your way down to 15 and 10,000, when you get to the $5,000 level, as an example, or $2,500 level, you say, we're very lucky to have a $25,000 matching gift for everybody that raises their paddle at the $2,500 level or at the $500 level, whatever level you want to pick. So again, this is a way to promote more activity in the room by using the high net worth people as leverage, either as an opening amount or as a matching gift at the lower amounts.
Well, and you know what I pulled once? I always say we're going to start at this level because we have a very generous donor. But then I stop and say, do we have a hero in the room that just isn't enough? And if you want to raise your paddle, we can bring the microphone to you, or perhaps you just want to make that gift anonymously. And so I once got $100,000 out of a room with that.
Yeah. And I'll sometimes do what I call a soft ask. If I know for sure I've got one at 25,000, I might say, we're going to start at 25,000, but I wonder if anyone would like to really kick us off in a big way at 50,000. It's what we call a soft ask. And if someone does, great. And if someone doesn't, that's okay, because you're backed up at 25,000. That's it. If you allow me, 30-second quick story. I was doing an event down Rancho Santa Fe, California, many, many years ago. We had always done 10,000 as our opening every year after year. Did 5 years in a row, 10,000. A lady came up to me at the beginning of the auction and she said, I would like to make a $50,000 gift tonight. I don't know when I should do that. And I said, let me handle it. So when it came time to raise the paddle, I said, ladies and gentlemen, you've come for years. We always start at $10,000, but have a very generous donation in the room. If someone would like to make $50,000, isn't that great? And everybody cheered. And I said, is there anyone else who'd like to match that? 5 people matched it. They'll often will give you whatever you ask for. If you always ask at a number that's below what they're willing to give, they're not going to say, no, I'd rather give more. So it's real important you think about ahead of time who can be approached to be that opening person, and then base everything off of that. So there you go.
Thanks, Jay. This next question, we are talking about different systems of moving data. This question came in. We are looking to purchase a new database management system. Can you provide recommendations for the most effective systems? We are a community college foundation in Napa, California.
You came to the right place.
Local. Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, I mean, you did come to the right place. We offer all of that. We actually have Dee Dee and I, you're in San Jose, right?
I
We're
am.
here. We're in Silicon Valley. We actually have one of our local community colleges using us, West Valley College. So yeah, please hit us up. We can talk to you. Absolutely.
And West Valley's my client, Chris.
Oh, is that right? Oh, I didn't know
Mhm.
that. That's funny.
Love them.
When looking at the cost of a big event, often organizations do not take into account all of the staff time under their expenses. What are your recommendations for this? Seems like the ROI doesn't justify the staff time, especially if you have the high-level directors part of the planning process.
I love this question. Can I take it?
Oh, I'm waiting for you.
Okay. I've been the executive director. I've been the founder. I've been the chief development officer in all of these. And let me just tell you, if you're wasting all that time, you're doing it wrong. Got to follow my blueprint. This is going to take you through directly to getting to the right source to get the right work done. And, we tend to not know. I mean, before, I promise you, I did it the wrong way and spent lots of time trying to get silent auction items and just squandering my time and my volunteers' time. But we've really created a system now that can help get you there directly. You shouldn't have to waste time. And there's a book you might want to read called Who Not How. And that is getting the right who to do stuff, because you don't need to figure out how everything. You're just wasting your time. And so, let's get you that shortcut blueprint and not waste time. What we're really doing is creating relationships for you to be building and enhancing year after year. And that's going to get you to the finish line much faster.
Offload to volunteers as much as you possibly can. Many hands make easier work.
Trained volunteers.
Train well.
Mhm. This comes from Jennifer. Are galas still the way to go? I've heard they're old school and that attendance is dwindling, especially at evening events.
Well, I've been doing galas for 37 years now, 36 years. I remember 25 years ago, people said, "Are galas burning out? Are they worth still doing?" And I thought, well, maybe I'm in the wrong business. And here I am 25 years later after that. The advantage of a gala is that you allow people to opt in at whatever level they're able to opt in and willing to do. If you just do a testimonial breakfast, as an example, you'll only get people that are going there to hand you money, but you may miss the opportunity to nurture new people that might come there, that might come to a gala to just bid in the silent auction, get wrapped up in the mission. They go, wow, I had no idea they did this. Well, maybe I will raise my paddle, or maybe I will, stretch and buy something in a live auction, whatever. So the gala is a great melting pot to find a lot of different people that can contribute at different levels. And then you nurture them the rest of the year. So I would not give up on galas yet.
No, and you're going to find out if you get my book in January or you go back and revisit the slides where I personally built nonprofit organizations with a gala. And it was the post work that built the nonprofit and the relationships. And I'm telling you, millions of dollars later, it works time and again. And so don't do it wrong, do it right.
And by the way, galas are not the same as they were 20 years ago. It's evolved. It's always an evolution. So what you see in a gala today is not what you would have seen 5 years ago, or even 10, or 10 years ago. So the concept of gala is not bad. Just make sure it's always integrating the newest things that are working. And that's where a good auction consultant comes in. They can help you what works and what doesn't work.
Right. What are your best tips for managing a live or silent auction with a small budget and minimal staff?
But you know what?
Well,
Just get some software. Get the right auction software. You can do your silent auction online and you don't have to do baskets for everything. This way you can open up this community to people who aren't even able to come.
yeah.
You can send it to everybody in the world and have this silent auction online. Our
Mhm.
software does that for you. And in the meantime, you can be focusing on the people who want to come and maybe buy raffle tickets. You're going to have maybe even a smaller crowd because the people who come to the silent auction are bargain hunters and they aren't necessarily the people who are going to raise a paddle. So you're able to give and create this in a much easier way. We're running out of time. If you want to reach out to me, I can give you all kinds of hints on get a fast live auction and a gala put together in a 1 hour, and you reverse engineer this whole thing and just then do the work. It's that easy, I promise.
Thanks,
100%.
Dee
Last
Dee.
two weekends, my last 2 weekends, both galas did the silent auction in advance, came to the event, shut down the silent auction after about an hour, but they've been bidding for 2 or 3 days. And then called them in for dinner, live auction while they eat, by the way, which is not after dinner. You want to use the time while they eat. That's every minute's a revenue minute. Eating is a revenue minute. So that's when you do your live auction. And that way you're not burning people out by having them wait till they're done eating to sit through a long live auction. You get done quickly. That's a simple process.
Thanks, Jay. At our annual gala, we raise a lot of money from sponsors who can invite 2 to 16 guests based upon the sponsor level. Many of their guests who did not pay to attend the gala, appear to enjoy the event and speakers, and appreciate our mission. However, many do not give. Do you have any recommendations for
Oh, I
this?
love this question. This is one I go through. Indeed, I was waiting for this one. Yeah, some organizations are really good at getting corporate sponsorships who buy tables, but then you end up with a room full of what I call borrowed evening gowns and rented tuxedos. These are people that are not normally going to galas. They're going there because the boss said, "Hey, I got some tickets to go to a gala. You want to go to the gala?" "Oh yeah, that's a great idea. I'll call my date. We'll go there and we'll drink wine and we'll eat a nice dinner." But they don't may not even know the mission. They're sitting at the table because the company doesn't want an empty seat. But they're not bonded with a mission. That's a real problem. So audience development is about putting bidders in seats, not eaters in seats. If you think you have a company that you sold a table to, and you're concerned that they're not going to fill the room with or fill their table with people that can spend money, ask them if it'd be okay if you filled their table for them. And then put the people that would normally be coming in twos at the corporate table because you know those twos that are coming will spend money, and that makes the company look good because their table is an active bidder.
So I even do it differently. Do we have time, Gab, for this?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So I don't even ask tables anymore. I'm looking for large corporate sponsors to just give money. And then they can send 2 to 4 awesome people from their organization to sit at a table, and they don't have to worry about filling it with people who are uninterested. If I sell a whole table, I might say something like this. Who is it you would like us to recognize at your corporate table? Would you give us the names of the 4 couples? Now, you see, now it's somebody significant that they want to recognize, and you tend to get better people this way. And
Right.
so I'm finding that instead of just loading it up and trying to fill tables that way, it's a little more direct science to people who are likely to give money. And I've done this with corporations. One PG&E, right? Had a one PG&E table, even though they had 30 people that were willing to come because they'd all been volunteers. I'd reached out post the last event and had created so many people that wanted to come and be part of it from the organization. But we knew the best buyers would come to that one table, and the others came and bought individual tickets. So it was a much bigger win for us.
This also ties into what you procure. If you think you're going to have a lot of corporate tables sending people that don't have a lot of money, don't have trips to Switzerland and cruises. Have lower dollar value items in your auction, in your live auction. It's okay to have an item that's only $250 or $500 in your live auction to get everybody amped up because you want everyone to have a chance to participate because eventually you're going to be asking them for a donation on the paddle raise or the fund to need. So you don't want everyone to be sitting around looking, well, I can't afford that. Well, I can't afford that. And that just sort of sucks all the energy out of the room. So if you think you're going to have a lot of people in the room sitting at corporate tables that don't have a lot of money, have auction items that they can afford. So they at least are engaged and they're getting a chance to put their paddle up. Then when it comes time to ask for the donations to fund the need, they've been engaged. They haven't been ignored all up until that point. So.
But we also find that 12 to 15% of your room are willing to do the live auction, no matter where you start. And so that's why I like a raffle because everyone needs to pay to play. And so have a few items where everyone has an opportunity to have a little bit that gambler in themselves. And then you've reached the maximum psychological profiles of the individuals that we know that come.
One of the problems, Dean and I could talk for hours about this. So let's move on to the next question.
What are your recommendations for implementing live event fundraising when you are not planning to do a live auction?
Well, you know what? If you're going to do a live event fundraiser and an auction can raise you $2,000 to $5,000 in 2 minutes, why would you not just find 5 items to do a live auction? So
Also,
I would say bend yourself a little bit. Go ahead, Jay.
yeah, I was going to say also the live auction sets up your paddle race. You can't just jump in to say, well, thank you, glad you're here. Here's our story. Here's our mission. Watch the video. Now give us money. There needs to be some preamble to that. And the live auction sets people up for that. So even as Dee said, even if it's just 5 items, do the 5 items in a paddle race, but don't ignore doing a live auction because you're going to leave a lot of money on the table.
And you know, most of my live auction items that raise the most money cost absolutely nothing to the organization because they're up your sleeve and you don't even know it. So that's another reason to talk to people like Jay and myself because we know this. We do it hundreds of times a year and I'd love to get that information to you.
Right on.
Um, in an event, is it best to incorporate a silent live auction and paddle raise? Is it best to
Yes.
have all 3 of those?
Yes.
Although
Yes.
I like the silent offline because people who like the silent auction, in my experience, tend to be people who are bargain hunters. And they may just only play with a silent auction. And if they don't get anything, they feel like, well, I contributed, I raised the paddle. Or I mean, I raised the level on the silent auction. And then they came, they ate, and they left, right? So if you can take the silent auction, put it outside the room, like Jay said earlier, and then you have people who are more engageable and more relationships that you can build with people who are more likely to invest more in your organization.
A good way to look at this, analyze like a raffle. If you do a raffle, let's say you're doing a raffle to win a cruise. You know who you sell tickets to? You sell tickets to people that want to win a cruise. You know who you don't sell tickets to? People that don't like cruises. So the reason you do a live silent raffle and raise the paddle is you've got something that'll appeal to everybody that's there. If you only do one of them, you're leaving those other people, giving them an opportunity to opt out because they're not interested in what you're doing. I don't care about the silent auction. I don't care about the live auction. I don't care about a raffle. I don't care about a paddle. But if you do all of them, you're giving everybody a choice.
Well, and there's the psychological profiles, right? You have your bargain hunters. That's like 20 to 25% of an average. That's a silent auction. Then you have your raffle people. That's about 30%. Then your live auction people is 15 to 20%. And the rest you're hoping are going to raise a paddle. Very few of these might do both. But between all four of these psychological profiles that we have completely identified and know, you're probably going to get 100% out of those four.
Got it.
Good questions, by the
Uh,
way.
yes, I will keep going if that's good with you guys. We have a couple more here.
I don't mind.
Um, this is for Dee Dee. Dee Dee, do you have them pick up the silent auction items after the event, or do you have these items at the event? I guess if this is maybe for on the website before if they're bidding.
That's a wonderful question. So if it's big and bulky, like a Traeger that I wound up winning one night and having to take home, I like to have that. Oh yeah, I'm using it for Thanksgiving. I
Sounds
like to
good.
have those big items finish up at the event so those people can take them. And then I have silent auction online, what I call flat pack. And flat pack are gift certificates or things that I could easily ship if they can't pick it up. And it's not going to cost me a lot of money, and it'll be something that I can send out very easily. So it could be a multiple buys on a trip, and so many things that you know, vacations, camp, different opportunities like that, flat packs, you can mail them easily. Big, bulky things, have them pick them up.
This is another question. How do you engage a board and committee around strategic partnerships to create ownership, accountability, and long-term sustainability so fundraising is not contingent upon one person's efforts, i.e., the ED or DoD or consultant?
Well, I've been all three of those, and every single time I've needed my board to come along. And so I do board trainings, and I've used my board trainings with my own boards to let them see, here are one, two, three tiny lifts for you to help us get to the finish line. And this is what you need to do, right? So it is educating them and training them to know what are the skills they bring and what can they joyfully add to this. It's not too big of a stretch, and that's getting to know your board and know what they have to offer. One of my board members in my last organization was a part-time salesman in a yacht company. So just finding out what people have and what they're able to finagle. Do you realize what a live auction item that is? Like a day on a yacht? And so a lot of these things are hidden within your board members and people they know. And so just giving them a joyful opportunity to lean in without a whip and a stick, it goes a long ways.
We have a few questions here about raffles. So this person, Lisa, is asking, do you add a wine wheel and hard alcohol silent auction in addition to a raffle, silent auction, live auction, and paddle raise? There seems to be a sweet spot so you are not balkanizing your potential donor dollars.
Well, people are going to give in a way they want to give joyfully. And so I don't like to have too many games. I have organizations, several of mine are dry organizations where you wouldn't ever bring alcohol. And so you just have to kind of look at your data from the years past. That's where I start with every client. What did it look like last year? Where'd the money come in from? How did it all look like? Who? A lot of live auction items are going to follow the donors. What do they want? And so you have to ask a lot more questions, and it's not a one size fits all.
Yeah.
This question is, what about raffles with consignment travel options? How to pick a price point and whether to include airfare or omit?
Oh, I love this question. Consignment is a great way to do raffle because you have an unlimited number of them. So if you put one or two consignment items in your live auction and you do what we call a golden ticket raffle, which basically means you get your choice of any item out of the live auction offerings up to the value of tickets sold, so that you're not upside down. So let's use an example here. You have a trip worth $4,000 that has a consigned cost of, let's say, $2,000. The value is 4,000. So you have to sell at least $4,000 worth of tickets for that item to be taken. It's what I call a raffle magnet. People will buy a raffle ticket hoping they're going to get that $4,000 trip. And so you sell a lot of raffle tickets because people want that really nice trip. Ultimately, whoever's ticket is drawn takes whatever they want out of the live auction, but that raffle magnet helped you sell the tickets. Now, if by chance somebody actually takes that, I actually had that Saturday night. We had a trip to it was a Nashville experience, and had a consigned cost of $2,000 at a $4,500 value. We sold $10,000 worth of tickets. The person took the Nashville trip, so that was great. And then when it came time to sell it in the live auction, because it was consigned, we were able to put it right back in the live auction. We never lost it. So it just became pure profit at that point. So yeah, I think appropriate use of consignment is a good idea. Do not fill your catalog with consignment items, but one or two strategic items for that to be a raffle magnet, or to fill a hole, or to do what I call a taller tent pole. If you want a taller tent, you start with a taller tent pole, right? So a nice consignment item that everything else drapes off of is a great idea.
All right. We have a couple more questions, and then I think we're going to have to cut it off after these last ones. What are some good ideas for raffles? Maybe some new ones that we haven't heard before.
Hmm.
Well,
Well,
one is one I just mentioned, which was a golden ticket. Because the thing is, as I mentioned before earlier, if you do a raffle for a trip for a cruise, you only sell tickets to people who want a cruise. But if you do a golden ticket, that means that anything in the live auction up to the value of tickets sold, you're not going to lose, right? So some people are going to do it because they want the parking space in front of the school. Others are going to buy a ticket because they want the trip. Others are going to buy it because they want the dinner for 8 at the local restaurant, or they want the ball tickets to the football game, or whatever it is. They're each going to have their own reason why they bought a raffle ticket. So you have a much broader appeal, and ultimately you're only going to have one winner, but you sell tickets because of the breadth of what's being offered.
well, and I have one that I don't want to brag on myself, but I did go to chef school many years ago. I have a couple clients where I'll cook a dinner with them with the executive director, and that's a raffle item. And everybody wants it because they can bring 6 people. And we just buy the food, and there's usually wine and stuff we can use to pair with it. But we'll do a lovely sit-down dinner. And let me tell you what that does. That just creates an incredible friendship forever with the executive director and whoever all those people are at the table. And they tend to be your top bidders. And so, what can you do to find an experience with a decision maker, someone who needs to make the relationships at your organization? That is a really cool way to do it. And it doesn't have to cost money. You could even have there's always somebody in every organization that can cook. And the opportunity to come to your home and invite some people who would be interested in your cause, it's a win in so many ways.
I see some
Um,
follow-up questions on the golden ticket. We probably ought to just cover that real quick. No, we're not selling raffle tickets to the people that are offline, at least for the live auction items. They need to be in the room to win that. Silent auction might be a different story. But golden ticket, the value of the ticket sold, what that basically means is go into each item, and it either has a fair market value or it has an expected bid range. That's the value of tickets sold. So add them all up. If everything in the live auction catalog is worth 5,000 or less, the person can take anything uh, for 5,000 or less, as long as you sell $5,000 worth of tickets. So that's 100 tickets at $50, or it's five to or it's it's 20 tickets at $50, whatever it might be. The point is that you add up how much you raised on the tickets, and anything below that. And I would do it as a finite number. I would not do an unlimited ticket, because people will perceive you're selling more tickets than you actually are. So if you're going to do the golden ticket, we're only selling 100 tickets at $100 a piece. So we're only selling 100 tickets at $50 a piece, whatever it might be. And by the way, take a look at your local raffle rules in your state. Every state has different raffle rules. I know California has some, and Washington has some, but you want to make sure you don't step on any legal toes.
Well, and I do my golden ticket a little bit differently. I call it the golden paddle. And what we do is that we pick a ticket winner who wins 2,500 or $5,000, and they get that money on a, or give them a golden paddle, and they get to spend that money at the live auction, and it's use it or lose it, right? And what's really cool about this is I have an opening bidder for everything because I'll be able to say, Chris, you've got that golden paddle. How about you open it up at $500 right now, and I'll step with Jay at 750, and back at you for 1,000. It's costing you nothing, and we all know it, right? And so we're playing and we're having a little bit of fun. And likely, if you win something that's 7,000, you got 5 grand off and two, and then that raffle raised 10, right? So
That's a cool idea. I like that. I like that a lot. We also do a nice raffle at the end called the paddle drop, where we basically say we're going to go around the room and gather up the paddles from you, and each paddle we get is $25 or $50, and then we're going to bring them up to the front, put them in a big box or a basket, and we're going to have the chair or somebody in the room come and pull one paddle out, and they're going to win a nice prize. So that's sort of a last chance to give you money on the people on the way out the door. That takes that paddle you paid for and turns it into a profit center.
it does. So don't print your paddle numbers on the back of the program. Have a separate paddle that they
Don't do
can.
that anyway. A lot of reasons.
Yeah.
You want the program open. If you have to have your paddle on the back, you've closed your program. It makes no sense. If I ever encounter an auction where they got the number on the back of the paddle, the first thing I do is I tell them to tear off the back cover. So yeah, you want a separate number. There we go. Don't get us started.
I could do this all day.
I know this was a great Q&A. I think
It
we're
was
at like
great.
30 minutes of Q&A now, which
Yeah.
is awesome. But I think we answered all those questions. So thank you so much, Dee Dee, Jay, and Chris, for your insights and advice. It's really great and happy to be able to share it with everyone who was on today.
Well, thank you all.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Gabby, as well.
And thanks, Dee Dee. Yeah. Thanks, Jay. Thanks, Gabby.
And thanks to everybody out there. We
Yeah.
appreciate you putting yourself out there and, you know, putting your life out there and your reputation to raise money and make your community bigger and better so we can serve more with joy. Um, we're all here to help you.
Well said. Thanks.
All right, so we will see you all on our next Ariva webinar. Look out for our follow-up email with the recording and PowerPoint slides for today, and we hope you make it a great day. See you again soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.